So you're watching the Science Behind That podcast on YouTube, and before your next video starts, an ad comes up for Turkesterone. And in the ad, it claims that Turkesterone is this miraculous brand new supplement that is able to produce massive results in muscle gain and muscle growth, similar to that of anabolic steroids, but without any of the negative side effects of anabolic steroids. But you ask yourself, well, Turkesterone must be a steroid because it has the ONE at the end of it. And as we all learned from organic chemistry, most compounds that have an ONE at the end of it are steroids. But you ask yourself, if it is a steroid and it's not an anabolic steroid, how is it possible that it can generate the same level of anabolic activity as anabolic steroids, but without any of the negative detrimental side effects? Well, let's talk about the science behind that.
Welcome to the Science Behind That with Atticus Hamilton.
Hello, all you scientists, and welcome on back to the Science Behind That podcast. I am your host, Atticus Hamilton, and as you heard from the intro, on today's episode, we are going to be discussing the science behind turkesterone, what it is, what it does, and why everybody is saying that this is the next big thing, the alternative to anabolic steroids. So we're going to jump right into today's episode, but before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite all of you to go grab yourselves a nice steaming hot cup of coffee, add a little bit of maple syrup to it, and let's jump right in. So today we're talking about turkesterone, and before we can truly understand if any of the claims about turkesterone are valid or, really what it is, we have to first discuss what it is. And so I'm sure all of you have seen the ads by, all these different supplement providers, bulksupplements.com, Black Forest Supplements, NutriCost. All of them, it seemed to be running ads for turkesterone. And a lot of them in these ads say that turkesterone does miracles for building muscle, and, it doesn't have the detrimental effects of anabolic steroids. But how real is that? Well, the answer is a little more complicated than you would think. So, first off, I just want to say I think it's kind of funny that there's all these people out there that are looking for alternatives to anabolic steroids, where it's kind of like people want to have the beneficial effects in terms of muscle building of anabolic steroids, yet still being, air quote, natural. And I just find that kind of ironic, but I think it speaks volumes to the society that we're in today, where, everything is about, being more jacked or more beautiful or whatever than the next person. And everyone's trying to stand out on the internet. I'm no different. I'm trying to stand out on the internet with my podcast, but I think it's kind of an interesting world that we're in right now. So what is turkesterone? Well, it is a steroid. Generally, in organic chemistry, when a compound has an ONE at the end of it, it's a steroid. So that's part of naming schemes for compounds. There are a few exceptions, but for the most part, if a compound has an ONE at the end of it, it is a steroid. Just like if something has an ANE at the end of it, that's an alkane. If something has an ENE at the end of it, that's an alkene. And if something has an IDE at the end of it, that's a carbohydrate or a sugar. So in organic chemistry, there's these ending groups of words that give clues as to what it is. So if you ever see anything in the future, ladies and gentlemen, that has an ONE at the end of it, it says it's a compound and it has an ONE at the end of it, and they're saying it's not a steroid, they're full of shit, because it is a steroid. So, turkesterone is a steroid, but is it an anabolic steroid? No, at least it's not a mammalian anabolic steroid. So turkesterone is what's called a phytoestheroid, which is a steroid hormone in insects and certain plant species, such as Ajuga turkestonica. I cannot say that name. It's AJUGATURKESTANICA, in case you're curious. So turkesterone is a hormone steroid in, again, arthropods and plants. And there are a variety of these phytoestheroids in plants. Other compounds from at least this plant in particular is ecesterone, ECDYSTERONE, which is also known by as its other name as 20HE, and that just gets down to the molecular formula of it. And oftentimes, when you have supplements that say it's turkesterone, it's going to be a mix, a blend of both turkesterone and ecesterone. And if we go to PubChem here and look up turkesterone, this is a really cool website, and I'll make sure to link it in the description. We see that turkesterone is actually quite a complex steroid molecule here. The chemical formula of it is C27H4408. Its molecular weight is 496.6 grams per mole. And it is a very interesting compound. And again, I'll add this website into the description below. But so the question then comes two things. Number one, we know what people say it does, but does it actually do what people say it does? And number two is, if it does, promote muscle building to the same extent that these companies say it does, what are the mechanisms of action of this steroid? And to be honest with you, despite what these companies may say, there's not a lot of research out there about it. But generally speaking, if we're looking at does it work? There's mixed results. So there's some studies, experimental studies, that suggest that it is highly effective. There was a study that was done in rats in the Journal of Journal of Sports and Health Nutrition, where they basically administered turkesterone supplements to rats and basically put them through a workout routine. I know, it was funny. And they measured the calf muscle size in the rats and found a significant increase in calf muscle size in the rats. And they've also replicated this study as well with people, and some of these studies have shown that there's a bit of beneficial effect of administration of turkesterone. But there have been other studies. For example, there was one big study with a bunch of people aged 20 to 40 that had some form of muscle wasting disease, and they administered turkesterone to these patients and put them on the same exercise routine, weightlifting routine, over the course of 4 months. And at the end of the testing period, they noticed that there was no statistical significance, statistically significant difference between the experimental group and the placebo group. So in my mind, it doesn't look very good for turkesterone. But that being said, what is the theoretical mechanism of action? Well, in terms of gene expression, right, because most anabolic steroids work by binding to your androgen receptors in your muscle tissue and upregulating various factors that correlate to muscle growth, such as protein synthesis and HGH production. Apparently, turkesterone does not work in the same way. It was found that phytoesterics do not bind to steroid receptors in human cells or alter natural production of testosterone. Instead, they act as influencers in signal pathways such as protein synthesis. And it was that aspect there that caused people to say, oh, well, maybe it's a good alternative to anabolic steroids because it's not binding to your androgen receptors. It's not causing hormonal imbalances in your body. However, I'm not quite sure what this means. And what I mean by that is there's multiple ways to act as an influencer in a signaling pathway. But it doesn't seem like the research has been elaborated on very much about how turkesterone is acting as a influencer in a signaling pathway for protein synthesis. And as of right now, as of when I'm recording this episode, which is the 12th of May, 2024, there's not a lot of data out here about turkesterone and about how it works. Now, there are articles here that, or research studies here that show a positive effect. However, as in this study right here, the precise mechanism of action of 20-HE or turkesterone remains unclear, but it is hypothesized that it exerts its effects by enhancing protein synthesis in skeletal muscles and the heart, blah, 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 boosting ATP synthesis in muscles, reducing hyperglycemia in diabetic animals, lowering plasma cholesterol levels, blah, 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 blah. And I don't know, to me it feels a little bit like snake oil, like a miracle cure, because nobody can quite identify the exact mechanism of action. Everybody seems to just hypothesize that it works by enhancing protein signaling cascades, or enhancing ATP synthesis, which I'm not quite sure how you would do other than increasing the efficiency of oxygen utilization in the muscle tissue. So as of right now, is turkesterone effective? It seems like it's mixed results on both sides. What is the actual mechanism of action? It seems like nobody actually knows what the mechanism of action is, which makes sense, right? Because this is a steroid hormone in plants and arthropods that's not used for muscle building, right? It's used for signaling. It's used for communication. And so it's a little odd then to go and say that it would work for muscle growth in humans. Is not out of the realm of possibility, and obviously the positive result data in the research that's out there came from somewhere. But as of right now, with the amount of conflicting results there are, it seems like it might be an iffy sort of thing, that there's not a lot of literature out there about it, that therefore the beneficial effects of it remain questionable. So overall, what are the negative side effects of it? We don't really know. It's definitely not as bad as like SARMs or peptides or anabolic steroids. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of research in that area as well. But the research that is out there in long-term negative side effects did not turn up any significant negative side effects. So I don't know. I think at the end of the day, in summary, it is a steroid, yes. but it's not an anabolic steroid, and the mechanism of action remains unclear, and the actual efficacy of it also remains unclear. So, I mean, if you could find it for cheap, not $100 a bottle, which it is being sold under that price, I'd say give it a try. See what happens. See if you significantly improve in your strength in the gym. But right now, the results are very, very mixed, and the mechanism of action is not well understood. And so, we definitely need to do more research into it. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is all I have for you today. I hope you had a great weekend and a great Mother's Day. And I hope you guys have a great week. I know Monday is the worst day of the week, in my opinion, but we'll get through it together, and I will see you guys all on Friday. And remember, as always, ladies and gentlemen, stand up and question everything.
Catch me if I fall.